on the Toyota Lounge. You know it. DNVR, driven by your Front Range Toyota stores. Toyota, the official vehicle of DNVR. And these three sickos sitting in a chair should be enjoying their summer. Nope. We're jonesing for some GD football, baby, because that's the life we've chosen. That's the life we live, Jakester. Damn, did I miss this. I miss this so much. I'm shocked, Jake, with the energy I just brought.
I missed it.
And I love it.
Dre's back from Italy.
I know.
Got a nice carb base going. He's got the energy.
Yeah.
He's ready for football.
Yeah. It's kind of giving me that juice I needed. You know, I needed a little juice, and I've got it. I'm ready to talk O-line. I'm ready to talk SEC football. Cortland Sutton just got himself a little extra money.
Yes, sir.
Because he came on this here show and told everyone he wasn't missing out on camp. Broncos rewarding one of their team leaders for that. The Big Boy Broncos show coming on later today. They'll get you covered with everything and anything happening in camp, including that big Cortland Sutton news. But yeah, as I alluded to, we are the draft show. We are here to talk about some preseason football and dream on some guys. Few people get excited about an offensive line preview the way I can get excited about an offensive line preview. But you know what? These 2021 contract extensions got me excited. Christian Darrisaw, Penei Sewell, some of the best calls I've ever had on the offensive side of the trenches. And then Quinn Meinerz, one of the great stories to ever talk about it. We'll get into that as well. But first, we want to talk about a fun offensive line class going into 2025. You know, Garrett Bowles could be up, could be a bit of a changing of the guard at the left tackle spot for the Broncos. Sean Payton, we know, is a guy who builds his roster inside out, starts with the trenches first. So O-line, always a position we will be looking at while Payton is the coach for the Broncos. Cannot wait to get into this. J-Mike, how are we doing, my brother?
I'm doing good. Obviously, you know, we just went live with the Rams show. That was great. We got training camp coming up. It's here, and I'm excited, like you mentioned, to talk O-line with you. Jake and I, we thought about doing O-line while you were gone, and then we were just like, what are we talking about? Like that is Dre's bread and butter.
Sicko hours.
It would be like, you know, doing a holiday without the proper people. I mean, it wouldn't have been right. It's good to have you back. I'm excited to get into it.
Fell short on the analogy, the holiday without the proper people, but I appreciate it. The sentiment is a good one. Jakester, how you doing?
Can't complain, man. Just ready for next week.
Yeah, what's going down next week?
Camp. I'm just ready to go into a coma and just wake up on Monday and just whatever happens from that point.
Football's so back. I caught the boys in between their return from Vegas and media days, still catching up on all the great coverage you guys brought us, and then the calm before the storm because camps are coming right up. J-Mike on the Ram show we just did talking up the smells of camp. How he misses those.
Is it a draft?
No,
I was just like, that actually would be a good draft to do. Best sports smells or something like that. There's a football smell. It's distinct. It's part grass. Like, it's also kind of like part like hot rubber. Yes. Obviously sweat and gross, but like a little bit of Gatorade in there. Like, it all comes together, and it shouldn't work, but it does, and it feels like home. So like, it was one of those, like, I'm looking forward to, like, when you get out there, you hear the pads popping, you hear that distinct sound, you hear the coaches cussing and whistles in the background, and you smell it. Like, there's a whole experience with football that's so much deeper than just what you're watching.
There's that distinct like rubber smell from the pads from like a helmet and stuff. Yeah.
I'm not the seasoned reporter you guys are. I'll always be in those situations, and I'll be like messing with the little pelts from the turf, and then be like, what am I doing? Like, these have been sweated on and spat on over and over.
Potentially
I have to get
peed
my
on at times. I mean, it's a thing.
That's the dark side right there. No one talks about the potential piss on those belts. But this pod's not afraid to go there, boys. Not afraid to go there, and not afraid to go in the trenches and talk some O-line. Fun little class. So we came off an awesome offensive line draft in the 2024 draft. Once again, the Broncos were like, nah, we're good, especially at the offensive tackle spots, which has been a trend. Zach Stevens has a homie that like texts him every draft to remind him, like, have not drafted an offensive tackle since the Garrett Bowles pick, which is when I started doing draft coverage here at DNVR, then BSN Denver, which tells you it's been a minute. And this is a fun class, and it's also fitting we talk O-line because we're going to talk SEC later. And as you'd expect, the O-line dominated by SEC talents.
Some big boys and some experienced dudes. Like, there's a lot of guys that played a lot of football, which is going to be interesting because whether you're looking at it from a draft perspective, whether you're looking at it from a betting perspective of who do you view as a contender, like all these top teams, Alabama, Ole Miss got a couple of guys, but LSU, Georgia, I mean, they are just stacked in the trenches. Texas might have the best line of them all. So, I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see how all this plays out.
100%. And it starts with LSU, where Brian Kelly, to his credit, has really had an amazing track record at Notre Dame of just producing all pros and high-end offensive linemen. And this year, the Tigers, go Tigers, have two offensive linemen, offensive tackles that are viewed as maybe the two best in the class. It's interesting. Some rankings even having Emory Jones, the right tackle, ranked higher than Will Campbell. Will Campbell, the left tackle, imposing such a sweet mover, kind of the consensus top O-line guy. And then Kelvin Banks out of Texas, the other guy, Sark. Texas hasn't necessarily produced a ton of O-linemen the last few years, but Banks looks to break that mold. He moves really well once he gets downhill. Man, he's a people mover for sure.
Him and Will Campbell, I think, are the best in this class. Do you see Will Campbell also like squat 670 pounds or something like that recently? You see that video?
Yeah, it's just one of those. It looks like it's AI, but it's just like no.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's with ease too.
Yeah,
it
was
crazy.
That's what I mean. It was not challenge. Like you've seen some of those videos with the big weights, and it's at least a struggle. And so it's like, okay, like I guess I could talk myself into it, just casually, up and down.
Yep.
Repping it.
Banks and Campbell though, they seem like I don't know, pretty high lock, at least top 10, I think, right now.
Yep.
Where we stand. I mean, obviously things can change, but
is it going to be another offensive heavy class with these tackles, plus the quarterbacks we're excited about, some of the wide receivers we're excited about? It's going to be those guys and some edge rushers, maybe a couple corners, you know? But outside of that, the defense, again, I think at the top of the draft will be a bit of an afterthought.
Well, what was the record that was set? It was like 20-some straight offensive picks to start this last draft?
The first 15 guys, right? We didn't have
overall,
a defender since Byron Murphy was then drafted 16th overall.
Right, okay. That's not going to happen this class.
No, I think the edge rushers will carry some weight, and Will Johnson, Travis Hunter, some of those guys on the defensive side will carry it. Banks and Campbell, though, have a lot of juice. They will be in very high-end offenses. And we always talk about, like, premier traits. They carry those premier traits. I think Banks might get some knocks for his run blocking, and that'll need to be fine-tuned. Campbell will have some questions on maybe, does he have that super-duper high-end elite length? But both these guys, they move so well. They're so balanced. Their lower half, they just move so smoothly, you know. I think that era of us going after, like the NFL going after those bigger, sloppy offensive tackle bodies, you'll still see some guys from time to time. But I think it's less and less.
It's not like you can't anymore. You have to move well enough.
Right?
Like edge rushers are so versatile; they can get so low. Tackles these days are dudes that are like 6'7" and all muscle, and in a different world, maybe we're in the NBA. Like they are literally that athletic. Man. It's absurd.
Like, it's guys who carry 320 and make it look like 285. Like that's Banks, that's Campbell,
4'6",
that's
4'7". Like it's just it shouldn't be possible. I am interested to see, like you mentioned with Banks specifically, like how does Texas run the ball? What does that offense kind of look like? Do they run it in the same way now that like Brooks is not in the backfield? Are you going to try and lean on Ewers? And you know, obviously you've got Isaiah Bond at receiver. Like, they've got a lot of talent.
I know. I'm so excited about Isaiah Bond in that offense.
I mean, like, I don't want to give away too much what we're going to do in the next segment with like some takeaways we've had from, or some lessons learned from recent classes. But to me, a guy like Banks, I'm not going to obsess over him not having like perfect length, maybe not being the biggest offensive tackle in the world. He's still huge. You know, he's like 6'5", 330 or whatever he is. But
such absurd standards where we look at.
I think of a guy like Rashawn Slater coming out of Northwestern, where I just kept nitpicking over and over again. Like, I don't know, the length's not quite there. Sometimes if you watch somebody who's just good enough at their job and you see it for a large enough sample size against enough of, you know, varying schemes and talent to like have an understanding, at some point, like, yes, it would be ideal if his arms were 1 inch longer, but like, I'm going to take a chance on this dude because he's just put enough quality football on film for a really long time.
100%. And I think it's our old margins conversation. I wonder how much like analytics has played into it, but it's like, yeah, if you're such a coordinated athlete that you just move that smoothly and you're able to like match and mirror these like high-end edge rushers in the SEC, yeah, what is an extra inch? Like, you're making up for that and some with the way you move, you know? So it's like, yeah,
there's levels to this. I'm not trying to be dismissive of it. Like the arm lengths, like there's a reason that we have these parameters and there's a reason that you're like looking for it. But
that's a great point though.
At the same time, like there's always going to be outliers. And at some point, these guys are just freakish enough athletes that it's like, yes, it would have benefited him, but that's not enough to ignore all of the great things that you were seeing happen on film.
100%.
Yeah, honestly, body type. I mean,
no fat.
I've kind of mentioned it on this show. It's like there's a difference between just drafting, like, you know, kind of what you were describing, like guys who are just super strong and like big because of their muscles and stuff, rather than drafting a big human being who is like a 6'6" legitimate athlete at whatever size he carries. Guys like Tristan Wirfs, guys like Joe Alt, like those are the type of guys that I think stand above the rest.
100%. I mean, Dwad Jones maybe swings a little further into the sloppy category, but for a man that size, you know, who's probably by like November is like at 4 bills, it's just insane what that guy's able to do, how he's able
he's not really,
to move.
He looks sloppy, but he's not sloppy for that size.
Yep. It's a great point. He doesn't move in a sloppy way, even though you look at his body. It's like, whoa.
Well, and y'all, when you're that big, you wonder, like, is it sustainable? Like, it's hard, you know, just there's a lot of weight to carry.
When your limbs are that long, you just move a little different. There's a lot more guys to talk about, especially on the interior offensive line class, where now we talked LSU. Bama's got 2 guards that are just beasts. Doing this also made me long for the Pac-12.
It's over. You gotta let it go.
Former Pac-12 schools with some good O-line play.
Pac-12's alive and well on my dynasty mode, boys. I don't know what you're talking
about. But first, a shout out to our homies at Raising Cane's. They have brought you our draft coverage all summer long. They're still bringing you the draft pod. I remember one of the greatest SI stories on the Wisconsin O-line and how they used to like to go to a local restaurant, and they were big on sauces. Boy, some of these O-linemen need to get themselves to a Cane's near them to get in on those tender, juicy chicken, hand-breaded, made-to-order chicken fingers, so crispy. And then you got that Cane sauce. 4 days. I saw the Nuggets pod. How a little sauce draft?
Yeah.
I don't know how
I like that Kale's a company man. Put cane sauce early on in the profile.
First pick.
And here's the thing, though. That's not even pandering. It is that good.
It is that
When I go
good.
to Cane's, I get
What's the
2-3 orders of extra sauce at least. I'm getting extra Texas toast. Like, I'm making a sandwich.
They're
I'm enjoying
expecting Calvin
life.
Banks to pull up at the window, and
then it's me. They're like, "Are you okay? Like, do you need help?" No, I'm fine because I got Raising Cane's for cooked order, hand battered chicken fingers. Race into Raising Cane's, turbocharge your chicken fingers, get them even faster. Order online at raisingcanes.com or through the mobile app. Raising Cane's chicken finger, one love. God, Cane sounds so good right now.
No kidding. I would love that. The first move was like Getting back from Italy, Kate made some pesto. Her pesto has now like surpassed my mom's pesto, so it was like a really nice transition.
That's a significant moment. That's like
it really is.
I mean, that's
it
like
really
a quarterback taking over for a legend. That's not easy.
Frankly, I didn't think we would see the day, but it's happening. It's
well,
happening.
I'm just like
Peyton Manning is in town, and
when you meet someone who does it right, like like my grandma's spaghetti is so good. I would never order spaghetti at a restaurant. What are you talking? I'm going to pay for worse spaghetti.
Exactly. And I really see it in my kid who like. Grandma's pesto was like, it's okay, but I could tell she
was into it.
She's used to something a little better. You're used to something a little better? Get in on Bet365. Olympics going on. College football preview stuff. NFL preview stuff. Sicko hours when you start gambling on some NFL preseason. That's coming.
Could never be me.
August around the corner,
You might need to call a hotline if you're doing preseason.
If you know about the Ravens record in the preseason, or you know how those second half unders hit when the third and fourth stringers come in the first two games, like Bet365 is the app for you. Scan that QR code and use our code DNVR365. It's going to be so fun. Yeah, I got to get into some like medal props right now for the Olympics and everything. I got to catch up with Hank on how he did on home run derby stuff. That's always the best. I just come off of draft season where I hit a plus 400 or better bet on every single draft that happened this summer. Bang, bang. That's your boy. That's how I roll. This isn't something we do for funsies on the draft pod. This is the life we live, and we've got the receipts.
This is a professional.
Damn straight professional here. Must be 21 plus and physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
Check out the DNVR events calendar at thednvr.com. Sunday, I messed it up. We got a watch party coming up on the 28th. Team USA taking on Serbia. Bar opens early at 9 a.m. Bottomless mimosas until 2 p.m.
Yes. Fun stuff.
It's going to be a blast. We're also road tripping out to Tampa Bay this September. You get all kinds of stuff included. 3-night stay at the Wyndham Grand Clearwater Beach. That just sounds fancy. True fan boat party. Yeah, you get to meet the boys and Broncos alumni.
I bet Florida J-Mike and Florida Jake have a vibe. I was introduced to Florida Dre last spring, my first time in Orlando. Woo-wee, do I like him? He's the best. So yeah, do it. Do it.
Tampa's a great city. So
Tampa, baby.
Follow us on social, DNVR_sports. Go to thednvr.com/events. We've also got Rockies Takeover coming up on the 17th for Todd Helton Day. Don't miss out on baseball history. There'll be all kinds of stuff coming up this fall. Watch parties for the Buffs, the Broncos, the Rams, the Avs, the Nuggets, you name it. We're doing it. DNVR events.
Yeah, get in on the fun. Okay, other guys to talk about. I leave the floor to you. I've talked quite a bit, but I have several names here on that I'd like to touch on.
This interior class, Donovan Jackson, Tyler Booker, just some nasty big dudes.
Yeah.
They're a bunch of fun. And then
Booker at Bama, seen as, I've seen some analysts say he would have been the top interior O-lineman drafted had he been eligible last year.
I mean, that's not surprising to me. Isn't he like 350 or something outrageous?
He's a big boy.
He's a monster. And then Parker Brailsford, the center at Alabama now, was the center of the Joe Moore Award-winning line at Washington last year.
Right.
Now he joins Kalen DeBoer. He gets to protect for Jalen Milroe, who's probably going to run around a lot and do some crazy things this season. So Brailsford's probably going to have, an opportunity to have one of those Quentin Nelson type blocks where someone's just coming across and he can just turn around and just clean someone up.
Oh, those were the best. Annihilate someone like that. J-Mick?
They're going to run the ball. Booker's a freak. I know he's interior offensive lineman and, the draft value and all that. I think he's going to be a top 15 pick.
Dude, and what's crazy is I really thought the Bama O-line was kind of an issue
for about 3 weeks.
Start of the year and dating back to the year prior. And they really turned a corner. Part of it is the true freshman left tackle figuring some stuff out. And part of it was that right side of the line, J.C. Latham, who obviously was a high pick by the Titans. And Jaden Roberts, who's kind of the forgotten guy in all this preseason talk, I was blown away by how good of a run blocker he is. He's got a Kelvin Banks type frame, just like broad shoulders, moves so well.
When you bring Caden Proctor back over from Iowa, and that was a whole weird situation, but
absurd situation. So that O-line should be really good.
They're gonna be huge.
And it's interesting that they get a coach who just had the Joe Moore offensive line at Washington, and now
they shore up. And I'm not trying to be a jerk, but you guys watched the playoff and you saw the snap issues that Bama had. That wasn't the only time that happened. There were key moments throughout the season where Milroe put the ball on the ground because they just I don't know if it was the yips. It was the weirdest thing because the dude was fine the year before, but all of a sudden, just they have the issues. Now you bring in probably the best center in the country to helping a guy like Milroe make his checks. At the line of scrimmage, just having that presence, having that experience. I think it's going to benefit Milroe. That unlike early on in the year, last year, like he's going to be the established quarterback. They're not going to be yanking him around, putting in a dude that's playing fucking lacrosse at Notre Dame now.
Dang.
Like, it was a little frustrating. I love Saban through and through. I didn't understand what they were doing last year, but I think it's going to be really interesting to just see how these guys can come together and how quickly they're able to gel as a unit. Being there in spring is going to be huge for the continuity standpoint. But this Bama O-line is kind of the biggest reason I've talked to myself, and I am a Bama fan just for transparency's sake, but I've talked myself into, I think they're going to be a lot better than I think people. I think some people are just kind of assuming Saban's gone, they're going to fall off. And maybe that happens because you're losing one of the greatest coaches of all time. Like, it is very possible that they don't win some of those games that they used to. But when you're talking about it just from a talent and athleticism and a size standpoint, like, this is a national championship type offensive line.
100%. And I'll save the greater Bama convo for our SEC stuff in a sec. I think despite losing J.C. Latham, a top 10 right tackle,
and Caleb Downs, you lose your best defensive player, you lose Isaiah Bond, one of your best receivers.
I think the O-line's going to be better.
They will be.
I think the O-line's going to be better, and it's because of the interior, and it's because a guy who will probably be talking about, if not as the top offensive tackle in the 2026 draft, he'll be in the mix as one of the 2 or 3 best. And like a trio of interior O-linemen that's has no equal in college.
Well, it's just like, everybody's obsessed with the new college football video game. I was playing on live last night with my brother. We decided to do a little SEC matchup, and he's just looking at the Bama line, and he's like, "Wait, all 5 of them have stars?" I was like, "Yeah, dude, they're going to be for real.
They're sick, man." Jonah Savinilea is a guy I talked about in our All-American preview out of Arizona. He's got a bit of sloppiness to him, and he is just a road grader. He's big, he is nasty, and he moves in ways that a big man like that should not move. If he can kind of fine-tune some of those rawer parts of his game, sky's the limit for this kid. You mentioned Donovan Jackson on a loaded off Ohio State
and this guy's nasty, too.
Yeah, he's big, and he is nasty is like the headline on him. And I'll be in both those guys. They've played on the interior. They have the size to move outside and play offensive tackle. And you love those guys because they always have that fallback plan of like, oh, they don't work out at tackle. Cool. We just kick them inside where they've already proven to be All-American caliber talents. We mentioned Emory Jones at LSU. Johnny Cornelius out of Oregon, a guy who's getting a lot of hype.
And the guy on the other side, too.
Yep, exactly. They have 2 dudes in there.
Josh Connerly.
Thank you. I didn't write him down, so I appreciate that. And would you believe it, the left tackle at Georgia, Ernest Green III, he's going to make an impact this year. Wouldn't be surprised if he is firmly in the first round.
That's an elite offensive line name. Ernest Green is going to maul you.
Add the 3 at the end.
Ernest Green the third?
Yeah, the third.
Good.
Watch out.
Train's coming down the tracks.
Yeah.
I'll throw out Trey Zoon
Tell Mama
as well.
not to put that game on TV when you're lined up against Ernest Green.
Yeah, just throwing out Trey Zoon as well. Fort Collins kid, starting left tackle for Texas A&M. He's athletically, you want to talk about one of those guys where it's like you're big and you move well. I mean, I've seen it since he was about 15 years old, but like he's going to be the next great, offensive lineman from the state of Colorado in the NFL. He's a freak.
Yeah, 100%. Another few I would touch on is Anthony Belton out of NC State. He's had his advanced stats are really incredible. NC State's been a weird one, but they have produced O-line in the last few years. So
NC State,
we'll see.
Kind of a sneaky pick in the ACC. You got Grayson McCall. They're good at home. He does this. They run the ball. Like, I could see it.
ACC is going to be interesting as well. And Fernando Caramoa Jr., Arkansas, that's their head coach, right? And he's still there, the former Georgia O-line coach?
Pittman,
yeah. He's there, and he's kind of, since he's made that transition after sending Thomas and Mims, was it? Both first rounders as 2 offensive tackles. He gets hired. He's kind of the top O-line prospect he's had since joining the Razorbacks. Caramoa out of Arkansas, going to be real intriguing. Irsay out of Minnesota, one of the top senior offensive tackle prospects as well.
Good for Minnesota for hanging on to him, by the way.
Yeah, truly. PJ Fleck, he's gone?
No, it's his last year, I think.
Yeah, so he'll be rowing the boat over there.
Double check that.
God, I love all the fun, stupid shticks from like 5 years ago that only you guys get the references.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, that's the O-line class. There's a lot of big guys. There's a lot of phenomenal athletes. There's a lot of guys that fit the Sean Payton mold. And I'm just going to be like a pig in shit following these dudes all year long. Cannot wait, frankly. And, yeah, I would also tell you, check out DNVR.com. We just did our top 25 greatest games in Colorado sports history. Jake's been doing an awesome series for diehards where you are interviewing former coaches of a lot of the Buffs.
It's been a minute, but yes, they're up there.
But they're up there. You've got film rooms. J-Mike, I mean, no one covers the Rams and has you covered on everything and anything going on in CSU world. This is camp season, which means Hankster and from time to time Zach are alternating and giving you the full breakdown on all the best standouts in camp. And
they kill it, man. I'm getting up writing the newsletter every morning, so I read what's on the site every day, what's relevant. It's awesome. It's the best Broncos coverage in town. You're not going to find 100%. Any type of in-depth observations, the way that Hank keeps you covered from every position group to every important thing that Sean Payton said. I mean, him and Zach, they know ball, which is big, but they're also very, very meticulous reporters, and the level of detail with which they report from camp it's unmatched. So I can't shout those guys out enough, and that's genuine. That's not me trying to just DNVR, everything we do is great. Genuinely, what they do is on another level. Yeah, I urge you to check it out, and if you like it, I urge you to sign up and become a diehard. With that comes a free shirt or hat of your choice from the DNVR locker when you sign up, and every year you renew. It's access not just to all our great diehard content. Of course, that includes Avs, Nuggets, Rockies, Rapids, you name it. It's also access to our members-only Discord where stuff goes down. I'm in like 2 or 3 dynasty or fantasy leagues with those guys. I was on there talking MLB draft before that happened because it's my people, right? The only place I'm going to find people to talk about that kind of stuff is our Discord. It's 20% off of all events. It's 20% off all merch. The website experience is fantastic, ad-free when you are a diehard. Check it out, man. I'll talk college football with you any day of the week in the DNVR Discord. Absolutely. And I will save you our spiel about what the sports media realm was in town before we came and what it is in other places. But I think what we do is really valuable, and we strive to give the kind of coverage that like only the Broncos get in town sometimes for all our teams. And I think we do a great job in that. So please check it out, thednvr.com. Okay, boys.
2021 draft was a fun one. I alluded to it a bit in the intro, but it's been on my mind with some of these recent contract extensions. Obviously, Quinn Ewers is the big one here locally. One of the all-time draft stories, a guy from Division III, Wisconsin Whitewater, doesn't play his final year because they're just not playing football.
COVID.
In Division III in that COVID year. So he's doing workout videos, which are
in the wilderness.
Trees, yeah.
There's something out of an SNL sketch. This guy belly out.
Yeah.
Well, there's a world where he just becomes a meme. This dude, you do all the videos and then he doesn't pan out and everybody looks back and I'm like, oh, what a dork. And the fact that he panned out, it makes it obviously retroactively, but it makes it even cooler that he has this weird lore to him. Didn't even get to play his senior year. Wasn't even, let alone D1, not even D2. He's out here training in the woods, breaking trees with his bare hands. Now he comes in and he signs one of the richest offensive line contracts in NFL history, which is just a testament to him. And I love stuff like that. And the Broncos obviously have a good track record with their own home guys panning out, but
gets the Senior Bowl invite, dominates the combine, stands out as a really supreme athlete, and has just had an insane start to his NFL career. Has done some real highlight type stuff. Honestly, it's stories like this that'll make it so that I'm never going to be jaded about draft stuff. I'm always going to be coming back to this because while some of these guys, you could have seen it from way far away when they were 5 stars at 16 and dominating their camps and getting big time offers and just consensus top talents when compared to their peers for years and years and years. And you kind of saw it coming from far away. There's always going to be the Quinn Ewers out there. That is an amazing story and surprises us all. And what a phenomenal draft story. But, in that 2021 class, you have a miss in Alex Leatherwood.
Why
would I do that? Mike Mayock's really the last big mistake before he's out of all of our lives. Mike, we miss you, even though no one will respect your draft coverage quite the same.
I'm convinced he just watched the national championship game and was like, Clemson and Bama.
Pretty much, man. Yep, pretty much. He's the one guy who never even got to be eligible for a 5th-year extension because he just got cut.
Yep.
Didn't even stand around. But in that class, you have Penei Sewell and what he has done for Dan Campbell and the Lions, turning that thing around, establishing an identity. And it goes back to your conversation about length, J-Mike. I think this class in 2021, that's now they're all getting their 5th-year extensions. They're all getting that big money. I think this is really the reason that in the last couple years on this podcast, we have talked about consistently damn, that guy didn't test out with 34-inch arms, which was our Mendoza line for a long time to be an offensive tackle in the NFL. And nowadays, for these recent draft classes, we've kind of been yeah, okay, we're willing to overlook that because they're a 4'9" athlete or whatever. And I think 21 with Sewell coming in under 34 inches. You had Rashawn Slater coming in under 34 inches. Elijah Vera Tucker was the same thing.
It was a bunch of dudes where it was yeah, they're great tackles, but are they really guards at the next level?
Right. And aside from Vera Tucker, they've all stuck.
Yeah.
And then Darisaw, 23rd to the Vikings. He's been an incredible pick, an absolute revelation. He's fit in so well with that O'Connell offense over there.
He's a perfect scheme fit.
Perfect scheme fit. He actually did have the 34-inch arms. I thought his tape at Virginia Tech was fantastic. I was frankly shocked that he dropped all the way to 23rd. Would have loved him to the Broncos if they traded down. Of course, that was the.
I mean, you had him. We were doing a lot of mocks then, especially in COVID, where we had a lot of free time on our hands. Yeah, you had him fairly consistently in the top 10, top 15.
he is one of my better calls for sure. And I think it's athleticism and scheme fit. Scheme fit is something I try for us on this pod to drill in on that pretty consistently. I don't know that that's talked about enough in the greater scheme. That's such a big part of all this, man. I mean, Darrisaw's such a perfect scheme fit.
There's archetypes. And sir. We've seen this Shanahan offense kind of just take the league by storm over the last 5-10 years, even more than it was before. And if you're going to run it, you need guys like Darrisaw to really move and take advantage of the flexibility and the speed that offense can bring.
Big time.
Well, it's tough to pull if you can't move. You know, like all the misdirection and the counters and
booting out even. Like,
good point.
Right. Stuff.
And I mean, I think that's where like even Andy Reid's offense and how innovative that's been, and you know the pulling guards in the opposite direction and then running the play the other way, like, which is a Lincoln Riley staple, and Andy Reid's picked up on that.
I was gonna say, the amount of influence that college football has had on the NFL in the last 15 years is absurd. And you would think it'd be the other way around. You'd think like we're trying to be like, no. In college, it's like where you're allowed to be innovative, and it's like where creativity flourishes, and then the NFL minds are like, all right.
It's always a trickle up. Man.
Yeah.
It's always
100%,
a trickle up.
man. It's honestly why I love this podcast. I will try my best not to wax too poetic about this show that I love so damn much. Coming off of vacay, I really missed it. And yeah, I think it's what's really cool about this is we do talk about that. We like see those trends coming.
Yeah.
And we've often been right because we do see that college game and we can track that influence directly to the NFL game. And I think we see it in the trenches as well, where athleticism is at more of a premium. And if you compare that with prototypical length and strength, yeah, that's gonna go a long way for you.
So it was before I did this show, but Orlando Brown was one of the guys that like changed it for me, because you saw him and he did the combine and all that, and it's like, this isn't an athlete. Like that would be your initial reaction, but the guy is just so big. He's got the length in his arms and everything, and he's strong as hell that he could just find his spots and dominate at his position, and became one of the best tackles in the NFL because of it. So
and made it work in a Lincoln Riley scheme.
Exactly.
Right? So
exactly.
Like, yeah, okay, it's a finesse O-line, but it's making a dude like that who's playing like almost 4 bills work.
Yeah.
You know, so the look back on 2021 was really intriguing, not just because of Quinn's story, not just because I feel like we were pretty high on Darrisaw and we have really been proven right. But it was just such a class. Sewell and Slater have these greater implications on the impact of length or lack thereof. And then there's Leatherwood and the
I don't think any of us were super
line.
high on him, though. Like,
no, we weren't. He was overdrafted in our eyes.
We talked about, like, he had the size. I was like, I could see a world in which he pans out, but even as a Bama guy, I remember talking like he wasn't overwhelmingly dominant. Like, he definitely struggled with elite pass rushers. He wasn't that guy that you're going to put at right tackle and just run behind for 300 yards. It was just kind of like, yeah, he's fine. He's an NFL pick. He should have gotten an opportunity, but that was wild.
It's the game is dreaming on guys. The game is gambling on potential. There is a fine line to that. And the Raiders are a great example, and it also plays into the, what situation, what scheme you're drafted into. You are just taking on added risk when you dream on guys and you're just betting on potential, and you're drafting them in a situation where stability isn't assumed. I mean, let's face it, the Raiders just haven't had consistency at the head coach position, offensive coordinator position, front office position. And so then when you take on a risk on more of a upside gamble,
that's a good point. You don't have as many things to lean on that can help you offset the potential negatives. You know, it's like if he lands, system-wise, I don't see it working with the Niners, but I was just trying to think of like who's a good coach and who takes advantage of like putting their guys in the right system.
Pittsburgh, where continuity is a thing.
Is it a different scenario? Maybe it is.
I think the failure rate is mitigated just as much.
I think the system is something we don't focus on enough with any position when it comes to success and failure. I mean, how many quarterbacks, whereas like if you just didn't land in that shit show of an organization that has no idea what to do with a quarterback rotation, maybe you work out. You don't know. There's no way to guarantee it. It's why it's like a classic sports radio segment, the hypotheticals, but it's certainly fair to bring up. Like so many of these guys were picked at a high level for a reason.
Yeah.
But
this class is taking me back.
It's been fun. It's kind of been like a trip down memory lane.
And I remember the top of the draft, pretty good. A lot of those guys got their extensions.
They panned out.
After Darrisaw's pick at 23, I think just ETN got an extension.
I remember loving Vera Tucker coming out of USC that year. Remember we talked about Deontay Brown a lot, the big offensive guard out of Alabama. We were like, is this even going to make it work? He's played in like 3 games since. Trey Smith was a big one too. Remember coming out of Tennessee the year before that season?
Yes.
We were like, this guy's like a first round like type of pick.
Yep.
He slips all the way down to the 6th round and then just becomes an all-pro gem stud for Kansas City.
Yeah, he's been fantastic. They've also since found Creed Humphrey, and those guys have fit that O-line and scheme so perfectly.
They don't get enough credit for how well they've drafted. There's a lot of focus on Mahomes, and obviously when you have the best quarterback in the world, it's going to offset a lot of your margins, and I think you see that with the lack of talent in the receiving core or the backfield. It doesn't matter.
They've struggled to figure some of that out.
But the trenches, man, that's the reason they've been able to keep this
defensively
going.
Too. Yeah, no, everyone wants to talk like Mahomes or finding Tyreek Hill in the 6th round. There's not enough talk about Tyler Smith, Creed Humphrey, those kinds of picks. Or like moving on from Tyreek Hill and how Karlaftis.
The linebacker out of Mizzou, even like in the 2nd or 3rd. I'm drawing a blank on his name right now.
Nick Bolton.
Thank you, Bolton. Like,
remember Tevin Jenkins too? How nasty he was coming out of Oklahoma State.
Yep.
He panned out for the Bears.
Another guy who length deficient and has worked out for them in a real way.
So let me ask you guys this before we move on and wrap up, just with some SEC thoughts.
Yeah.
Are you willing to go so far as to say that we no longer have the Mendoza line? 34 inches. Should it be 33 inches? Or is that still what you should strive for while just understanding that there are outliers?
No, that's still the benchmark.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too.
I'm with you. I think it's a lot like where it's like, yes, there are quarterbacks that can be successful that don't have big arms. You'd still rather have a big arm if you could.
Right. You don't want to lower that threshold when edge rushers are still coming in at 6'5", 6'6", 240, 260 pounds. Like, these are monsters that are coming off the edge, so you're going to need to kind of match that at least physically with some guys who have length that can actually, extend and try and block 100%. Those.
I do think, and this is something we've talked about through the years, is size is it's not a metric to be taken on its own. It's a size per athleticism equation, right? And that all is like how far can we skew one way, how far can we skew the other, is based on what are the other traits you bring to the table.
Well, you can come to a false conclusion if you fixate too much on one element of the data, but you're not looking at the whole picture.
100%.
SEC?
SEC, let's
where
get into it.
Where it just means more?
Damn straight. And they are losing Nick Saban and adding Texas and Oklahoma. And on top of that, you have some really intriguing programs. What's LSU going to do with a quarterback change? Where does Ole Miss
can they have more success than A&M did while buying a team?
100%. And they lose Quinshawn Judkins, who I'm hearing the college football game has made the most unstoppable.
He's broken.
Talent of all. And I mean, on top of that, what can we expect from Tennessee? Georgia's the favorite on Bet365 to win the conference at plus 175. They returned their starting quarterback. I would argue Carson Beck, the best quarterback since Kirby Smart, has been the head coach at Georgia. We talked about Ernest Green III. How good will that defense be?
He's the best quarterback since Matt Stafford.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just thought that was an interesting.
I'd expect him to win more. Stafford,
yeah.
A little disappointing in his tenure there at Georgia.
In terms of collegiate success, yes.
I mean, that whole Reich era is a little bit.
It's tough to judge. They ran that offense went for 500 yards a game, and they were super balanced. And
I mean, some people are high on Connor
Wegman. Texas A&M. Yeah,
A&M's quarterback.
Yeah. A&M is going to be better.
I would think
Elko
so
is a really good hire to bring stability. I don't think they're like a playoff contender, but they still do have a lot of obviously, like we mentioned, Trey Zune, the left tackle, when we were talking about the offensive line. They've got a lot of size and speed in their front seven. They've got a lot of guys they brought in as receivers. Some of them ended up transferring to Ole Miss. Ole Miss brought over a lot of the A&M guys too. But I feel like with Elko coming over, like they're going to be a lot more consistent. Like I don't think they're going to be flashy, but it's a lot like what you saw at Duke over the years. Like they're just going to be a competitive, well-rounded football program, and I think he'll do a good job of taking advantage of the talent they have and maybe not putting their quarterback in a situation where it's like, you got to be the guy, you got to be Jameis Winston for me, when they never really had that QB.
100%. So what do we think? The real contenders, how deep are we? 6 deep? Tiff, you can pull up the Bet365 odds where Georgia's the favorite at plus 175, Texas plus 300, and then it's Ole Miss plus 650 in front of Alabama plus 750, then LSU plus 900.
Some of that schedule, Ole Miss, they miss Georgia. They don't have to play LSU this year. So their schedule is kind of favorable compared to some of those other top teams.
So what's going on with West and East? Is that alleviating some of the schedule? Because usually those West division teams...
now they're eliminating that because they bring in all the Texas and Oklahoma. So now it's just kind of chaos. And there are going to be certain teams that get a real advantage from it that miss 2 of the top 3. Like if you don't have to play Georgia, Texas, or Bama, like that's obviously going to be a huge advantage for you in your path to the SEC title game.
And Missouri was outstanding last year. Florida's going to be Missouri.
That's my SEC dark horse right there.
Yeah, same. Like
Luther Burden.
Brady Cook. Defensively is the question with them.
Can you stop anyone? Yeah.
They lost a lot in the NFL draft this last year.
Mm-hmm. Darius Robinson, first rounder.
But they've recruited really well, man. They've really have... I didn't really think I expected this when they joined the SEC, but they have become an SEC team with how they recruit.
Well, they're good for a flash in the pan, like every 7 days. Like, you know, like 07 and 08. Like, obviously, 07, they should have gone to the national title game.
Now, though. They're sending like
12 and 13,
guys.
they had multiple. They went to back-to-back SEC championship games when they first came into the league. Like, they have these small flashes in the pan, but I'm with you. It does feel a little bit more substantial now. A little bit more legitimate.
In the East, they felt like the one team who could kind of hang with Georgia.
They gave them fits last year.
Mm-hmm. And this is the conference of quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Is Oklahoma...
Go down that contender list, and it's Carson Beck. You got Quinn Ewers. You got Jackson Dart at Mississippi. You got Jalen Milroe at Alabama, which is going to be one of the funnest, most intriguing conversations at quarterback this season. And then, you know, Wigman at A&M. Tennessee's got the kid everyone's hyped about.
I'm a Leva.
Bless you. And then LSU. I mean, Brian Kelly's going to figure something out over there.
Yeah, they're running back Garrett Nussmeier, who, I mean, that's a pretty steep drop-off. Jaden Daniels to Garrett Nussmeier, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued by Arkansas with the Boise's kid, Taylon Green. That guy
struggles with accuracy.
A ton of fun.
Athletically, he's for real. Like they're gonna do some fun dual threat stuff with him. That's gonna be really intriguing. The guy nobody's thrown out Oklahoma. If Jackson Arnold pops at OU, I think they're kind of the dark horse that everyone's like, yeah, you know, Texas, and rightfully so, that they've got a lot of talent. I feel like Texas is the sexy pick coming in out of those two. I mean, I trust Brent Venables' defense if they can be a little bit more consistent, run the ball a little bit better than they did. I mean, they've got a chance. I've read a lot of people that are all in on him, so we'll see. But highly touted recruit. They let Dylan Gabriel walk for him.
It's nutty deep. We
didn't even bring up Arch Manning.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's in a spot where it's the new conference, right, with these added teams. I think some hierarchy will be settled in the next couple years to where we'll just be back to like, these are the 3 best teams, and then it's the best of the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, though, I think you're in a spot where you have like 6, 7 legitimate contenders, and the next couple years will determine that hierarchy going on for the next decade.
Knife to your back. Who's your SEC pick?
You start us off. Give us
I asked you
Bama
first.
talk. No, you're ready for the Bama chat.
Look, I can talk myself into Bama really popping just with the offensive line. I think that they're gonna run the ball incredibly effectively. I think DeBoer has made every quarterback better that he's ever worked with. I think he does a really good job of leaning on what his guys do well and not putting them in positions where they have to do too much. Milroe is very limited within the pocket, and we saw that when Bama struggled last year, whether it be against Texas, whether it be in the playoff. Like, when you force him to sit there and make reads, go through the progressions, he cannot, at least consistently last year, make the big throws. If he can take that next step, I see a world in which Bama's back in the SEC championship game. That said, and I could very much see myself regretting this down the line. I think Texas is for real this year, and I think they're my pick to win the national championship.
Them adding Isaiah Bond to a quarterback room of Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning that have several years' experience in that Sarkisian offensive scheme, and the O-line they have, which we're so high on, and just the talent they're going to have everywhere else because they're Texas. I love their edge rusher, Ethan Burke, I want to say. I don't think enough people are talking about him. He's going to be a stud, and they're bringing out some more D linemen who are going to be really high. I'm really high on Texas.
Do you buy into Sark? Because to me, that's really what this comes. If you believe in Sark, then Texas is going to turn a corner here. If you don't believe in Sark, then Texas is going to find a way to do what Texas has done basically for 15 years, going back to that 2009 national title appearance with Colt McCoy, and that's all the talent, and you're going to go like 8-4.
I buy into Sark. Yeah, I mean, gosh, he handed Saban's biggest home loss in his entire tenure. He has an undefeated season despite his starting quarterback being out multiple weeks. And I mean, shit, they're probably playing in the national final if Michael Penix doesn't have the game of his career in the national
I'm with you, but I mean, there were
know?
legit questions when he went to Austin of like, yes, he revitalized his image in Tuscaloosa.
I think he's answered those questions. I think the bigger thing, though, is it's Georgia, man. It's Georgia. Like,
the
that
brand.
defense is still stacked.
Well, and Beck coming back is huge.
Beck's the best quarterback they've had in that entire Kirby Smart era. I'm super high on their tight end. They always find wide receivers. The running backs are always superstars. Todd Monken, this is year 2 of that scheme change, right? So I always think year 1, you still feel the effects from the previous year. Year 2 is where you got to kind of find your own identity, and you maybe feel the lessening of that. And Georgia off field, the stuff they've done has concerned me.
I was going to say, the only thing that might stop Georgia is like a speed trap.
I don't think we're going to see the effects just yet, though. I don't, man.
Kirby Smart's the best coach in the country now that Nick Saban's gone.
I bought into Texas when Sark got there. I thought that his time with Nick Saban at Alabama would totally change his perspective on coaching, and that's what it's become. It's the Nick Saban. It was the Nick Saban like coaching home rehab center for a while over there at Alabama.
Foster's home for imaginary friends, but it's like Saban's home for rehabbing coaches.
Georgia's winning this conference. There's too good.
I can talk myself into Texas all I want. I can talk myself into Bama. But then I look at Georgia and I'm like, what am I doing?
So if you take those 3 brands out of the picture, and we're talking, like we mentioned Missouri, we mentioned LSU and Ole Miss, out of that group, who do you think has the best opportunity to, we'll say, make an appearance in the SEC title game? I don't know if any of those teams are beating a Georgia or a Texas if they make it to the title game against them. Anything can happen. But who would be your pick out of those, like specifically Missouri and Ole Miss?
Ole Miss.
Yeah.
I think Jackson Dart is being underrated at this point in time. I think he has a chance to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country this year and be a first-round draft pick.
Feels like Kiffin might be due too. Like I think we've gone too far with how much he gets invalidated because he's kind of a character.
They lost Judkins, but they have great skill at wide receiver. One of their tight end, I can't remember his name right now. He's really good. He's one of the best in the SEC. And then Walter Nolan's going to be one of the best defensive players in the entire country, and he's smack in the middle of that defense.
Yep. They have the edge rusher from Florida.
Yeah, Prince Umanamelon or something like that.
Bless you again for saying that for me. Yes.
No, Ole Miss is legit up front. Offensive line wise, I'm not as bought in, but because of Dart, because of the weapons you have, I'm on Ole Miss.
Georgia plus 175. Georgia plus 175.
I'm going Texas. I think Texas is for real.
I like it. And then, I mean, let's do this one real quick. Over, under 3.5 SEC schools make the 12-team playoffs.
But the Big Ten and SEC are getting 4.
Agree?
I'm going to say under.
3.5 might be too low.
I think one league gets 4 and one league gets 3. So which league is the one that gets 1 less? And for me, I think I like some of that depth in the Big Ten in the middle a little bit better. And I also think that there's kind of an easier path to 10, 11, 12 wins for a couple of those Big Ten teams than there is for some of these SEC teams who will be hoping to knock on the door.
I love it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, fellas, for making it happen. Thank you to Tiff for being on the sticks. Leave us a thumbs up on the way out. Share this with your friends if you are jonesing. And yeah, if you watched us on Twitter or X, jump on that YouTube feed where you can participate in the Toyota chat, ask us questions, talk some shit, have some fun. We'll be back next week. As always, mad love. Thank you for tuning in. Bye.
We all silly like the mayor.